Hi, this is Tavi Greiner, Astronomy.fm's Vice President of Communications. If you enjoy our programming, please let us know with a donation to astronomy.fm/donate. We really do rely on your support, and it's true, every little bit counts.
AFM.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
The curtain of night is drawn back. The telescopes are trained. The domes are open. The audience is set. Now, step into the event horizon.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Event Horizon here on Astronomy.fm radio. It is another Friday evening, and what do we do on Friday evening?
We take over the world!
That's right, or at minimum the airwaves. Yes, it is. Another Friday night, March 8th, 2019. About 9 o'clock in the evening for those of us here in the eastern portion of North America. Universal Time would put it at 2 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, again, 2019. So that means we are live.
Marty, one thing. We better do our PSA straight away.
We better
Folks,
do our what?
remember,
PSAs?
2 a.m. Sunday morning. This Sunday morning, the clocks go ahead 1 hour.
I was going to get to that.
Well, I think we'd better strike hot. And by the way, if you want to listen to the podcast version, go to the AFM website, to my Facebook page. Well, not to the AFM website, the AFM Facebook page, and to my Facebook page, because I'll have the show there for you with the links.
So we're going to start at 3 o'clock Universal Time, is that right? Or
Yeah.
we start at 3 o'clock.
For about
no,
a
wait,
week.
or is it 1 o'clock?
No,
I can't remember. Which way do we go?
We get because we're going ahead.
We go ahead, so we go ahead 1 hour. Universal Times will be starting at 3 o'clock Universal Time, when whatever your local time is, compared to that. I know some people will be into summertime eventually.
Yeah,
whatever your changes is. So that's, by the way, that's coming up this sort of Saturday night to Sunday morning, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
Sunday.
Glenn's got his eggs ready to balance on end.
There you go.
Now, the thing is, I don't see why the world just can't adopt Universal Time or GMT and be done with it. Let's not have to worry about time zones, daylight savings time. Let's get rid of it. The only reason we have daylight saving times, people, is because of the war. Well, the First World War, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the government decided it was such a good con that they would keep it going. So, as I say, that's why we are stuck with daylight savings time.
Okay. Our radio director said it'll be 1 o'clock. 1
Like,
o'clock Universal Time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I thought it was later, but
Well,
I don't know.
Glenn says do like China, the same time over the country. Not just China, Glenn. India is exactly the same. But they're talking about having 2 time zones. One for Western India, one for Eastern India. But that's still up for debate. But
Kind of makes a difference when you want to get into sunsets and sunrises and stuff like that, too, you know.
I would point out that the way the U.S. is, California is behind, is what, 4 or 5 hours behind?
4 tops, I think.
Yeah.
Because of the fact the U.S. has multiple time zones.
Yeah, let's get rid of them, though. Let's have everybody on the same time zone.
Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I love it. I love starting a discussion like that.
We
Why
have
not?
Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific time.
I'm being told that if we all went to the same time zone in the US, it would so screw up people's lives. Yeah, so
Yeah, especially school kids.
so they get to in California, they get to go 4 hours later to school and get out 4 hours later than maybe in New York State. Oh dear, it's fun, but I really think. But we never. I'm being told about the circadian rhythm, but we never really had time zones. Whichever, we never had time zones.
Everybody lived in one spot.
Yeah, and of course, daylight savings was only really brought in to hike productivity during the First World War.
It doesn't really save daylight anyways. It just shifts.
doesn't.
It just shifts it.
It shifts everything forward an hour and back an hour.
Yeah.
The idea was, well, you get an extra hour of daylight, one way or another.
It's either in the morning or in the evening. Yeah.
Is it really worth it?
Well, it does affect some things. Like if you get off at 5 o'clock from work, get home by 6, and then during daylight savings time, it does stay light until about 9:30, 10 o'clock, as opposed to like 8:30 till 9 o'clock. So if you want more daylight after you get home, do some outdoor work, stuff like that, it gives you more daylight to actually be able to see stuff. You can still paint your house and cut your lawn after you get off work and have dinner and stuff like that, but you can't necessarily do that stuff, and you don't have enough time to do it after work. But before work, who wants to get up at 5 in the morning and cut their lawn and paint their house before work? Nobody wants to do that. So,
in fact, Glenn is pointing out that in the US, time zone was started so that the railways could say, well, we're leaving the East Coast at this time,
it would
and we're
make
getting
sense.
San Francisco at this time.
Exactly. Yep.
It's a commercial. It's a business.
Do you know why Michigan is in the Eastern time zone when it really shouldn't be?
Why is that, Marty?
Because I do believe, if I heard this correctly, Henry Ford wanted Detroit, the auto industries, to be in the Eastern time zone, the same time zone as New York, where most of the business is conducted, in the Eastern time zone.
Yeah, because that way he could keep tags on Wall Street.
Yes.
And make his money easier.
Mm-hmm. That's
he didn't have to worry about staying up late or getting up early.
They'll basically be in the same time. So if everybody gets off at 5, it's going to be get off at 5 in Detroit or get off at 5 in New York, and you'll have to figure out or remember what time it is someplace else. So
anyway, it's been a really good day for spacefaring kind today, hasn't it, Marty?
So far so good.
As a certain Vulcan would say, Navan, success. Because the Dragon X capsule has completed its demonstration flight, and what is more important, and this, to be honest, is the kicker, it has survived re-entry, it has successfully splashed down, and it has been successfully recovered. Yeah, it was great that they actually got a successful launch. Yeah, we're getting used to Musk having a very good launch, but now he's taken it to the next level. He's actually got his demo capsule home intact. Ripley has been reporting all the way there, and during the stay, and all the way back. Gee, I wonder how Signora Weaver feels about being nicked like that for the dummy's name. But anyway, the more important thing is, when will it fly people? Later this year, Glenn. Now, the thing is, the re-entry was the final main test. There is one more test that they're going to fly before it's crewed. And hi, Black Projects, great to see you. Oh, did we say who was in the chat room, Marty?
We didn't say we had a chat room.
No, we didn't. We forgot about it.
No, we didn't. I got interrupted by daylight savings time.
Okay, so we are in the http://astronomy.fm/chat. Just type a name in, keep this password blank, come in, join us. Keep it nice, please. It is a family-rated area. And join in the general schmozzle, as they say.
Schmozzle?
Schmozzle. Have you ever heard of a schmozzle?
Never heard of schmozzle.
Schmozzle. It's called a schmozzle. It's an East End term from London for a little bit of a fracas, a bit of enjoyment.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway,
does it come with beer?
Well, why not? I've got a glass of wine. If you want to have a glass of beer during the show, be my guest, Marty.
That works better. Yep.
Anyway, so in the chat room, of course, there's me, there's Marty, there's Glenn, Starstorm, Black Projects, Cassie. Just dropped out for some reason. I hope she's going to get back in.
Timed out, so
yeah,
she
should be back. But do join in, because the thing is, this is what makes the show more fun. Glenn's always saying, my goodness, don't forget the peanut gallery. Yeah, the peanut gallery might get into trouble in this schmozzle. The ECN lads may not let them survive. But when will it fly people? Yep, later this year, one more test. This is the most important test. This is the escape capsule test. And what they're going to do, they're going to launch a Falcon X with this particular capsule attached. And at the moment of maximum aerodynamic Q, they are going
Max
to...
Q, the biggest stress on the craft. And
they're going to abort the launch.
Which means they've got a escape rocket attached to the capsule, crew capsule.
Look, the actual crew capsule itself powers up.
Yes, does this one power itself up from the bottom or from the top? Is there a separate?
From the bottom, from what I understand it, because unlike Orion and Apollo and Gemini and Mercury, the escape rocket engine was perched on top of the capsule. Here, from what I understand, and I could be wrong.
I could be too.
The fact is, what will happen is the engines on the capsule will come to life, kick off the booster, and bring the capsule safely back.
Or to a higher altitude and let the parachutes take over, whatever, depending on the altitude where something goes wrong, I would assume.
The thing is, it's got to be at the maximum aerodynamic stress on the rocket. Because if it can successfully detach itself and remove itself from the actual rocket at that point, and then safely return to the Earth, this will say that this is a delivery system ready and waiting for its first crew.
Mark's got a video in our chat room for. He says it's a ground pad abort test. So that means while the booster is on the ground, they'll fire the escape rockets and lift the capsule off of the booster and send it on its way to a safe landing somewhere. It'll either have to go up to get the parachutes to work, I would assume, or this is SpaceX. They might just fly sideways and land. That'd be interesting to find out how they do that. No booster, just the capsule.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it would separate from the booster. So, but I was wondering, would the capsule have to fly higher so the parachutes will work, or will it actually land itself like the boosters do, or just go for the ocean?
Well, that we don't know yet, but obviously it's going to be set up and discussed. NASA is, of course, overjoyed, and the first two humans to ride the Dragon have been selected. Bob Burnham, or Burkham, and Doug Hurley are going to be the first humans to fly in a Dragon capsule.
Okay.
So, say basically the idea, if it can do it at this particular point of flight, it can handle an escape at any stage in flight. That is the most important thing. And of course, maximum aerodynamic pressure, max Q, is the most vulnerable point at a launch. I remember Willie Shearer was talking about when he was doing Wally Shearer, thanks. Wally Shearer was talking about how he was not happy about having the original block seats in the Apollo command capsule, because his big thing was, we like this bomb underneath us, and something goes wrong and the wind blows us back over land. You're probably going to have a bunch of crippled astronauts, because the Block 1 seats really could not take the stress of a land impact. Everything's designed around dropping into the ocean. But the Block 2 seating was better designed and better anchored, and could have withstood the unimaginable impact forces of the command capsule being blown back over land.
Higher G-force,
yeah.
And
landing-wise, yeah.
If it passes this test with flying colors, we won't have a repeat incident like Challenger.
Hopefully not. The biggest thing with the Challenger issue was we got complacent. The whole country got complacent. NASA got complacent. The contractors got complacent.
And mismanagement too.
Yep, there was that, and that was part of that was where the complacency crept in. We
got
so used to doing regular flights.
There were still engineers that said, no, this is not going to work. But then management says, you're not management, go away, we don't want to hear your comments.
Yeah.
And that's what went wrong with a lot. Everybody wasn't complacent. There were still engineers that were quite aware of some particular dangers, and they tried to point them out and got ignored.
The biggest safety issue with the shuttle was, of course, on the SRBs with O-rings.
Mm-hmm.
You get a really, really cold day, and the O-rings get very, very cold. They get very fragile. And as Richard Feynman...
They don't expand is the problem. Not fragile, but they just don't expand.
But the rubber is still very fragile at very low temperatures.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it was a brittle breakage thing. I think it was more of a not expanding so it wouldn't compress and expand properly and fast enough was the problem.
I think it was probably both, because the O-rings were so cold. They couldn't do their jobs, which allowed hot gases into places where hot gases should not have been at that point.
Right.
And as Richard Feynman demonstrated to the committee that he was a member of, that the fact when you stunk an O-ring into liquid nitrogen and then take it out, it breaks.
Does it break or just not expand?
It broke. And of course, the head of the committee who's investigating the disaster didn't want to hear it. Nobody wanted to hear it, and until he actually refused to, he said, if you will not add my points into the report, I will not sign this report.
Well, the liquid nitrogen, I think, was 180 degrees Fahrenheit below zero, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And it didn't get that cold in Florida. So it got down to just below freezing, I think. Was it in the 20s or something like that?
It was cold enough to affect the O-rings. They didn't do their job.
Right. They didn't expand properly, but they weren't cold enough to be brittle and snap, though.
But he used that as the science experiment in front of a bunch of people who basically didn't want to know.
Right.
And as he pointed out, if you don't put this into the report, I'm not signing this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the whole reason Reagan personally appointed him to the investigation panel, because he was the one person that Reagan knew who would be difficult and who would refuse until he got the chance to make his point, not only to the committee, but to everybody else,
mm-hmm.
as to what actually caused the disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next time we lost a shuttle, it was because of impacts into the wing. The whole wing was compromised during launch.
Yes.
And that allowed, when it came to re-entry, because the tiles were missing and there was actually a hole, it allowed the heat into the spacecraft and allowed it to be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Spaceflight is not something you just do at the drop of a hat. Spaceflight, you plan for every possible scenario. We didn't. We stopped doing that because we were getting so used to seeing a shuttle go up every month. They would turn them around quickly. The SRBs would be provided, the fuel tanks. They could be damaged. And the foam around the fuel tank itself was one of the biggest culprits in damaging the underside of the shuttle.
Yep.
That caused that to be all stripped off.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, then they actually had up until the end, it was fairly safe. They used the ISS to do inspections in minutia. Once the shuttle got there, the shuttle had to fly over several cameras. So not only could ground control check the shuttle for damage, that the astronauts or cosmonauts already on the station could actually check the shuttle for damage and report anything they've seen. They even began to carry a tile repair kit.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, people, again, it's called complacency. And complacency is not what you want in a space program. At the end of the day, that's what kills your crews, and that's what ends your program. And then what happens? We become like the dinosaurs. because we haven't got a space program, we can't do something about that piece of rock or comet that's got our planet's name on it.
Well, that's manned space program. There's still unmanned space program, which will be what we do about potentially harmful rocks in space.
It's still gonna need, in my view, a manned space program, because if there's something that big, that's that big, we need to be able to evacuate. And without space, we need to move people to Mars or to the moon. And if we haven't got a space program, we can't do it because we're just going to get wiped out. Okay, the chances of this happening are so remote. Yeah, okay, but at the end of the day, and even without a manned space program, we can't. Our probes could be missing vital clues. Our probes are only as good as the people in their mission control areas, and they're seeing in the past. Whereas if you're a human and you're on the face of Mars, or if you're on the face of the moon, you can see something. Apollo proved this with the famous orange soil, because it would have been missed by a probe, but it was something that was seen in the corner of an astronaut's eye, and he said, "Hang on, I thought I saw something orange." He went over orange soil. They collected it and tested it, and if it hadn't have been a human, I think that would have been missed.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, robots are brilliant. Curiosity's also calling home and talking. It's come out of reset, and it's got a nuclear power supply, so it can survive the dust storms an awful lot better than poor old Opportunity and Spirit could.
Mm-hmm.
I am gonna miss Opportunity and Spirit. They were really great little machines. The fact that Curiosity has now called home and told everybody, "I'm fine. I've done my reset. I'm ready to get going again." Brilliant. And of course, the newest lander is running into troubles already. The drill bit's stuck.
Wasn't a drill. I think it was a probe.
Yeah.
Would be to get rammed. It was hammered into the ground.
Yeah. And now it's stuck.
But not all is lost. I don't know if it's stuck or it just
thanks for that project.
It just stopped because it probably hit something too large for it to get into, like a big rock. But not as big as an asteroid type of rock.
Well, as Glenn points out, they're still there. Let's go upgrade them. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Why not on maybe the second manned Mars mission, go and upgrade the probes, recover them, give them better software, give them some new instrument packs, and give them a new direction, give them some new science to do. And to be honest, they're great. They proved that a mission that was supposed to lasted a year, a Martian year, and it was going on for such a long time. I think it's only the June 2018 Mars sandstorm really killed Opportunity.
But by the time humans get up there enough to actually get to those probes, they'll be so outdated. You probably just grab them and bring them home and sell them on eBay and make some money off them. That's the only purpose for them after a while. So they were so slow.
Don't
and
say that,
so limited amount of
because
memory in
they
it.
get angry.
So limited amount of memory in those computers. By the time anybody gets there,
we can home and sell them on eBay.
We can probably upgrade them for 1/10 of the cost and send something better out there. If there's actually people there.
Black Project's right. Put them in a Mars Space Museum.
That's right.
Don't bring them home. Put them somewhere where people can actually go see them.
Yeah, like Earth.
Well, yeah. Okay.
I mean, if you're on Mars, would you really care about a 50-year-old Martian rover?
I think people would,
nah.
that they were the leading parts of Martian exploration. How if you're living on the moon and you get a chance to go to Tranquility Base to see the descent stage of the LEM, to see the footprints made by the first men on the moon, I bet you would go. I bet it would be part and parcel of an education there.
A little bit, but can you imagine? Well, like there's already another lander heading for the moon right now. The Israeli lander, from Space IL. So a lot, and everybody, India's got a decent space program. So a lot of countries are going to be getting a good space program. One thing that's definitely going to happen is that everybody's going to junk up the moon. But you got to figure it's been clean for 5 billion years. So what? Let people junk up the moon, and it's not going to be that rare anymore to have old artifacts on the moon after a while. So maybe yes, a couple of the first missions would be fine. I don't know if you really want to image a splattered moon probe all that much. Would that be interesting? Nah, maybe not. So, yeah, the first one's okay, but then after a while, people are just going to be, picking up scrap metal off the moon from some of these old probes and just recycle them or something like that. So, using them to build more space habitat.
Well, the thing is, Glenn's right. We should rope off the moon footprints.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of it is it's still part of history.
Mm-hmm.
Surveyors and rangers regularly impacted when they'd taken their photographs, and then they started soft landing them in preparation for the moon landings.
Mm-hmm.
So they're sitting out there, and they can probably tell us an awful lot about solar radiation. As Black Project points out in the chat room, the moon is full of debris. Apollo S IVB stages slammed in. The lumpods that are dangerous as they're full of plutonium. Oh no, polonium. Sorry, polonium.
The upper portions of landers.
Well, you've got the descent stages from the Apollo program.
Yep.
And more importantly, you've still got some very useful experiments that could be reactivated.
Isn't there an ascent stage?
Well, basically,
the upper part. Did they slam one of those in the moon to check out the what's the seismographs they put down?
No, that was an SIVB stage from an Apollo.
Okay.
Ascent stages were crashed into the moon.
There you go. I thought so.
Okay. But I know they did that experiment.
Instead of bringing them back.
Well, yeah, and I've got to go and have a chat with a friend of mine shortly because I think he's got some very exciting news about one certain lunar module, and I'm not going to say any more about that subject for now.
Ooh, mystery. How many lunar modules are there? All right. Well, let's get into some other spacey stuff coming up. March 14th, next Thursday, there will be another mission going to the space station, Expedition 59. 3 crew members will be heading there. It'll be, I can't remember the names. I'm going to have to look them up. And there's going to be a couple of spacewalks coming up in March also.
And more importantly, for International Women's Day, I believe there's an all-woman spacewalk happening. There
is. It would be astronauts Anne McLean and Christina Coach. I don't know how she pronounces her last name.
Now, of course, the other thing is, I was going to say, oh yeah, this particular expedition could well be the last one to use a Soyuz exclusively to go to the ISS.
Yeah.
Musk has proven SpaceX, the Falcon 9 and the Dragon capsule. So this year he will send it's already been agreed and a crew been picked to take the Dragon capsule with a manned crew to the ISS.
Mm-hmm.
So Starstorm, I like that idea too. She says she's put into get to Mars, fix Spirit and Opportunity, retask them. Well, you could use them as weather stations and make them so that they can report home and to the Martian colonists and explorers. But as I say,
I wonder, some of the Mars trips, if they're going to need, instead of robots, maybe they could take some like work animals, like donkeys or something like that, because that would fulfill that promise in what was that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Total Recall.
Total Recall, yes. It'll fulfill that advice there that he told himself. Remember what that was?
It's been so long since I haven't seen that film.
Well, like a donkey in a spacesuit to do some work moving stuff around would be getting your ass to Mars.
Oh, boy. Okay, Marty. Yes, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll relay that to Starstorm because she can't hear the show.
Alrighty.
A donkey in a spacesuit means you're getting your ass to Mars.
No.
But, anyway.
Well, anyways, on that note, I don't know if we should tell them who we are, but we'll do a little station identification. Yeah. You're listening to the Event Horizon here on astronomy.fm radio. This is the Event Horizon. It's about 9:30 in the evening. For those of us here in the eastern portion of North America, it is March the 8th, 2019. About halfway through our program. Universal Time would put it at 2:30 in the morning, Saturday morning, March the 9th. Again, 2019. Halfway through our program, don't forget we've got our chat room open for you to come on over and join us. Just go to the homepage, astronomy.fm, and you'll see down near the back, the bottom of it there, it'll show you how to get into our chat room. By the way, skip the password. Erase that if there's anything there. Just need a name and hit the login, and you'll be here in our chat room. About half of our program gone by. What have we got tonight? A talking space? Did he say we've got coming or something else?
Yeah. I think he said talking space, yes.
Talking space and more programming also coming up. Don't forget, this is Friday night. So then tomorrow would be to us Saturday night at this time. And then after that would be Sunday morning, 2 o'clock in the morning this weekend. For those of us here in the eastern portion of North America, we change over to daylight savings time. We spring forward, so that will shift our show time by 1 hour. So do the conversion for where you're at, your location. So in case you don't want to be an hour earlier, don't want to be an hour late, especially for our next Friday program. So keep that in mind. Yeah, it's always screwed up for you.
You know what, Marty? We haven't done this week's Sky at a Glance for a while, have we?
We haven't done any skies at a glance, but let's go for it. I've got some moon stuff, but what have you got out there also?
Okay, so what have I got here? So it's not spring for another couple of weeks, but the spring star Arcturus seems eager to take the stage. It rises in the east-northeast horizon soon after dusk, now depending on your latitude. To see where to watch for this, find Ursa Major, high in the northeast. As soon as the stars come out, follow the curve of its handle down and to the lower right by a little more than a dipper length, and that's the spot on the horizon to watch. So, Saturday the 9th of March, that is a few hours away now. So by the time it's fully dark, Ursa Major is high in the northeast and beginning to tip left. Look well to its left for Polaris and the dim Ursa Minor. Other than Polaris, all you may see of Ursa Minor through moonlight or light pollution are the two stars forming the outer edge. Those are Kochab, similar to Polaris in brightness, and below it, the fainter Perkahad. Find those two guardians of the pole to Polaris's lower left by about a fist and a half at arm's length. Now is the time of year when the guardians line up exactly vertically at the end of twilight. As we pointed out, daylight saving starts for most of the US and Canada at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, and we're all going to get grumpy from the loss of sleep. So, on Sunday the 10th, on the traditional divide between winter and spring sky is the dim constellation Cancer. It's between Gemini to its west and Leo to its east. Cancer holds something quite unique. It's the Beehive star cluster M44 in its middle. The Beehive shows dimly to the naked eye if you have little or no light pollution. With binoculars, it's easy even under worse conditions. Look for it a little less than halfway from Pollux in Gemini to Regulus in Leo. On Monday, the waxing crescent moon shines in the west to the left of Mars after dark. Above them is the Pleiades, or Subaru. Left of the Pleiades is Aldebaran, the orange eye of Taurus. Now, by Tuesday, the now thickening moon is in the outskirts of the Hyades near Taurus. And in a very dark sky, the full constellation stick figure of Canis Major is fairly plain to see in the south after dark. The big dog is seen in profile, prancing on its hind legs with Sirius.
Sirius.
And
Tomato.
Potato. Okay.
Aluminum.
Aluminium. Sorry, folks. We're having a bit of fun here. So, with Sirius or Sirius, take your pick, as his shiny dog tag. But where many of us live, only its 5 brightest stars show through the light pollution, hardly dog-like. However, those form the unmistakable Canis Major meat cleaver, Sirius Amersium, to its right are on the wide front end of the cleaver, with Sirius or Sirius sparkling on its top back corner. Down to the lower left of the cleaver's other end, including its short handle, formed by the triangle of Adhara, Weazen, and Aldura, the blade is dropping towards the lower right. Surely you're joking. Only if you're calling me that as I command an aircraft. Sorry, yes. Airplane.
I'm not joking. No, the counter line is, I'm not joking, and don't call me Shirley. Glenn's got it.
You know how long it's been since I've seen that movie?
Yeah.
What's the Victor?
It could have been yesterday. What's the Vector, Victor?
Yeah. Roger. Okay, so Wednesday. The moon barely short its first quarter, now shines in Taurus, a little more than halfway from Aldebaran to Zeta Tauri, the fainter of the 2 horn tips of Taurus. The other horn tip is Beta Tauri, a little higher above the moon. By Thursday, it's the first quarter moon. Now, one thing I will just going back a little bit, for Tuesday and Wednesday, this may be a chance to look for a famous optical illusion on the moon called the Werner X. We'll talk about more of that later, perhaps. So Thursday, first quarter moon, exactly at 6:27 a.m. this morning. This is obviously on Eastern Daylight Time. About nightfall, half a day later, you can see that the moon's terminator is no longer exactly a straight line. After dark, you'll see that the moon is in the Theta Gemini, high over Orion, and just above the top of Orion's very dim club for North America. Now, I've never seen this asterism, but they say it's called the yellow-eyed flying bat asterism. It's visible in binoculars. It resides in Leo Minor near Lynx. Its wingspan extends nearly across a binocular field of view. Find it in the upper right of Leo Sickle these evenings using Matt World's binocular highlight column and chart in the March Sky and Telescope. To be honest, I use Phil's binocular tour of the universe, and I find things that way. As he notes, it only flies right side up when Pollux and Picron and Phocyon are crossing the meridian, as they are now. Friday, another event horizon should be ready for you. As Arcturus rises half an hour earlier than it did a week ago, theoretically, than it did a week ago. Look for it very low in the east northeast after nightfall, and higher in the east later in the evening. It's magnitude 0, one of the brightest stars in the skies. And that brings us to the 16th, and we'll probably cover the 16th next week.
I think because the 16th is next week.
That's right.
Okay. Did you see the moon tonight?
Actually, I haven't, no.
It was really nice. It's set now, but only 5% lit. That was really nice thin crescent in some pretty good dark twilight. So nice. Let's see. The moon's going to be south of Uranus tomorrow. Between the 10th and 11th, it'll drift on over to going south of Mars. You already said that. Between the 12th and 13th, the moon will be passing through the Hyades. There will be several stellar occultations. So try to get some views of the moon in a few more days when it gets into the Hyades region. And you already said that around the 13th or so, it'll be first quarter moon. By the way, I got some sunspots. Sunspot news. Yeah, a few days ago. Wow. There was a small cluster on the moon. On the sun. Now it's kind of.
I like that.
Lots of spots on. We'll get to a sunspot on the moon. Yeah, there's something like that. There is actually. Active region 2734 was a small cluster of about half a dozen spots. Now it's down to one single spot. Size of the Earth? Less than the size of the Earth. Less than about the size of the moon. But it flared. If you go to spaceweather.com right now, you can watch a video of that sunspot and active region actually flaring directly towards the Earth. Not much of a flare, though. Should be about a Class C1 flare. So straight towards us, but not really all that active. So you should see some obviously increased auroral activity from that flare. Mostly the auroral activity has been coming from coronal holes, though. So, but at least we got a flare, actually.
So according to Black Projects, a CME is incoming. Yes,
it is. To what degree, we'll find out when it actually gets here, though. So, let's see. Oh, I got alert notice for people, though. This is from the American Association of Variable Star Observers, a professional, not astronaut, astronomer is monitoring a nova-like variable star. This one's designated 1SWAP. I'll put the link into our chat room, then of course it'll end up on our Facebook page. So I want some observations. It's not so bad. It's between brightest at 12.8 magnitude down to 16 magnitude. So if you got a fairly large telescope, you can look for it. And hey, if you got only a 10-inch telescope and you can see it, that means it's probably closer to 12 or 13th magnitude. But if you can't see it, good chance that it's somewhere around 16th magnitude. They're doing some research on these this type of nova-like variable stars because something strange is happening. They're going to use the Chandra X-ray telescope. This thing is actually the opposite brightness in X-rays than you would think it would be. So when it flares up, when it gets really bright, the X-rays are softer. So not as high frequency the X-rays. But when it's quiet, they've got brighter X-rays or higher intensity X-rays. So they want to figure out why. They think they got some ideas by studying other stars, but this astronomer is actually studying this one. They need observations by general amateur astronomers. Pictures, if you got them, visual comparisons to other stars in the area, if you can do that too. So contribute to professional astronomy, and this is the way we do it.
Now, whilst we're going through all that, Black Projects put a link in from someone who actually is a friend of both of ours on Facebook, Sazbox Nagi. He's actually been imaging the ISS and Dragon capsule.
Oh, nice.
So he's put a link into the chat room. So that should pick up okay, and everybody can see it. It's a great little video, and he's marked various parts of the ISS. The other thing, of course, is there's a link in the chat room for March constellations, so I'll quickly go through that. So being March constellations, we are visible to us is Cancer the Crab, Canis Minor, Carina the Keel, Lynx the Lynx, Puppis Stern, Praxis the Compass, Vela the Sails, and Volans the Flying Fish. So those are all constellations you should be able to easily find. Now, you will need a good star map. You will need to be able to star hop. Now, more importantly, yes, you're quite right, Starstorm. Now, most people obviously have go-to telescopes these days. I put my hand up. I've got one of those. But even using a planisphere, you should be able to find the constellations very easily. It is a very good idea to learn your way around the constellations. Why? Well, because every now and again we get a nice little bright pinprick of light. We either get a nova or a supernova, and if you know what the constellation looks like, and you suddenly see something, that's the Lynx, and that looks a bit odd, then you may be able to get a report in, and you may get tagged on a discovery. Obviously, it's a first come first served basis. But the important thing is you have to know your constellations. And if you don't know your constellations, you're going to miss out on it. And I am freely admitting it has been at least 30 years since I sat outside with just a star map and star hopped. Hey, I'm honest.
I do it regularly. Coming up, the next occultation of a planet by the moon will be an occultation of Saturn on March 29th. Centered on South Africa, barely hitting the east coast of Brazil, and barely hitting the very southern tip of India. Mm-hmm. Right. So Saturn's one with most occultations by the moon, but the observation point is getting farther and farther south. So the next three will be next six actually will be the southern hemisphere, and then after that, they're basically Antarctica.
Oh well, so where does everybody go for their holidays then? I'm going to Antarctica.
Yeah, plenty of observations. So a lot of chances to see Saturn get occulted by the moon. Asteroid occultations. I just found this one last week or something like that. Remember how I was almost, until somebody mentioned, almost going to miss a star going in front of Sirius.
You're not Sirius, are you?
Exactly. But it got shifted out to the Caribbean, and we didn't get any reports on anybody actually seeing it. We'll get another chance. This one's kind of interesting. March 18th. A 1.3 magnitude star, that must mean it's kind of popular, is going to get covered up by a 18th magnitude asteroid, be visible from Brazil. And the star is Regulus in Leo the Lion. Mm-hmm. Let me put that, find your chart. Is that it? No, that's not it. Where did it go? It's here somewhere. Let's see. Where is that? Right there. Okay. Sorry. There it is. Okay. Let me put this link into our chat room. And this is where you have to be in the world on the east coast of Brazil in order to be able to see this. Not too far from Optronics. Maybe you'll get a chance to see it. So a lot of good stuff happening in the southern hemisphere this year for observations in the sky. So good place to be this time.
Well, the other thing, of course, we've been talking about SpaceX. The official NASA launcher is SLS. Mm-hmm. It's slipping again. I can't believe this. Top NASA manager says 2020 SLS launch under review. So what they did was there was recently a large test fuel tank for the SLS system was placed in a stand at the Marshall Space Flight Center for stress tests this week. Despite the federal government shutdowns, the liquid hydrogen tank will hold 537,000 gallons of fuel to lift SLS off the launch pad and towards the moon, its first destination. Yeah, it is becoming a bit of a dodo, isn't it, really? Because the prime contractor behind it is really, they dropped one fuel tank onto the production floor.
I hate when that happens.
And they've now admitted they can only build 2 a year.
Usually hits me in the toe.
Yeah, that can be painful.
Mm-hmm.
But right as of now, NASA has to reassess its 2020 launch readiness. Slinger told the Space Transportation Association meeting that all segments of the first rocket are ready except the core stage, which is almost ready. More testing remains, the report said that the Green Run test firing of the assembled rocket was supposed to be either late this year or early next year. To be honest, Orion is facing the same issues. It keeps slipping further and further back, and at the end of the day, we can't just depend on SpaceX. Wild Blue Yonder is supposed to be coming up soon. That's Steve Bezos' rocket group. Boeing have got their Starliner project. Yeah, you're right. They're not the old Boeing Saturn V builders. It seems to be that they don't think ahead enough, and they haven't really assessed the capacity. If SLS is to get off the ground and work and do what it's supposed to do, they need to be building at least 4 or 5 rockets a year in order to meet the actual schedule. It's not happening. I am a bit concerned because, the America needs multiple boosters to lift heavy loads into space, particularly for a serious return to the moon and the journey to Mars. SpaceX is great. Wild Blue Yonder is brilliant. But relying on a business plan that could change based on the bottom line is kind of like putting about 20 eggs into one basket and hoping none fall out. It's really a case of, at the moment, it is profitable. Both Bezos and Musk can go for their dream, which is going to be for Mars. And as Glenn points out in the chat room, this is why being in the chat room is so important. We need somebody in power to say, we will go to the moon in this decade. Now, the old Boeing team that built Apollo, they had S1C stages rolling off the production line once every 4 months. And they're still and at the moment, they're still building the first SLS. This has been going on for 5-10 years now, Marty?
Something like that, I think.
It seems to me that the people in the suits need to stop being idiots and just get their act together. Yes, NASA does need its own lift system because with SpaceX and Wild Blue, they have to pay for rides. Still, it's going to be a lot less than they're having to pay the Russians. And Black Projects quite rightly points out von Braun would have been tearing his hair out. He'd actually started forward planning for a Mars mission once Apollo really got going. He was thinking long term, but people aren't thinking long term. Sad, really, but you can't just depend on industry to go it alone. There has to be some commitment from the countries. Israel is getting in on the act. They've got their first lander going there. It's had problems. Big deal. This is the first time Israel's ever done anything like this. There's going to be teething problems. Mm-hmm. China is going great guns. The Indian government is pushing hard for its first manned missions into space, which will be brilliant. And of course, we have the Russians, which are plodding along with Soyuz and Proton technology. As Glenn points out, he was thinking of human spaceflight from the beginning. He got sidetracked. It was called World War II. Mm-hmm. But once that was over and done with, he got back to what he really wanted to do, which was put man in space, put man on the moon, put man on Mars. I'm going to dig out my Mars report by von Braun and read that again, because I enjoyed reading that. That was fascinating reading. Mm. When you think about just how much of a jump he was ready to do, he had a lot of that technology already there. He was just thinking of expanding on what he had built with Apollo. Mm-hmm. And I guess if instead of Nixon stopping Apollo, there were 3 manned missions left for Apollo to do. But Nixon had those cancelled. He wanted his dream, which was the space shuttle. The space shuttle was at best iffy. It had a lot of problems. Eventually, it was retired. Then we had this huge gulf between the end of the shuttle era and the new beginnings of manned missions being launched from the U.S.
There was a pretty good gulf between the end of Apollo and the beginning of the shuttle also.
Well, they'd already started working on the shuttle project.
Yeah, but completion time, it took a while.
It took a while, yeah.
There was not much flying between...
Agreed. And I think that was the mistake. Because they'd stopped flying, it was really they were having to go back and reinvent the wheel. Mm-hmm. And by having to do that, you lose time. It costs a heck of a lot of money. SLS, really, when you think about it, is a Saturn V on steroids.
Yep.
They've gone back to basically plumbing. Now, if you wanted to fix a Saturn V rocket, you didn't have to call in a plumber, really, because that's what it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as Glenn's pointing out in the chat room, Nixon didn't care for Kennedy, and he wanted to really make his mark on space program. And really, I think what we really need to get back to is considering nuclear propulsion for a manned Mars mission. Now, there is a YouTube link in the chat room from Black Projects from a 1968 NASA documentary where they're talking about using nuclear propulsion to get the crewed mission from the Earth to Mars. That would be excellent. The only one problem, we have this outer space test ban treaty, because technically any nuclear propulsion system really is a controlled bomb. And that's not allowed anymore.
Depends on how it works, though. If it's just a heater, it's not like a mini explosions under control. It's just a heater.
Some of the ideas that were being worked on, like the fusion power source for a spacecraft, would definitely have violated the test ban treaty. And they were using controlled nuclear explosions as a propulsion system, and that is definitely a no-no under the treaty. But sadly, unless the world powers can actually sit down at the UN and talk sensible and decide, well, yeah, we can use this system, but we agree that we will monitor it internationally to make sure no one's actually just building bombs to point at the Earth. The Nerva reactors were actually nice and fairly clean. Project Orion was apparently a very dirty system. It was a no-no. But unfortunately, Nerva was banned under the Outer Space Test Ban Treaty, which is sad, really, because we could have been further out into the solar system than ever. Ion Drive, as it stands, is nice because it means for a small amount of propellant, you've got an awful lot more you can do. You can change orbits, you can go to more places, and we've proven it works. So we've got to work on that. We've got to work on a few other things, and maybe we need to sit down internationally and get things sorted out so that we can go back to Nerva and really do some, as somebody would say, kick some real good butt and go a few places and do it quicker.
Well, we're doing okay so far. So the way things are going, so we're progressing a lot longer than, I should say, a lot better than we have been in the past several years. What did I have an article on? Shoot, what was it? Oh, yes, we're talking about sunspots I mistook about sunspots on the moon. Okay, here's the article. I forgot about that. Magnetic bubbles on the moon. What it is solar wind coming off the sun, travels throughout the solar system, hits the moon, of course, but doesn't quite hit the Earth because of our magnetic field shielding us from the harmful radiation from the sun, particles coming from the sun. The moon does have a few features that does almost the same thing. Now, the whole moon, there's not enough magnetic field to cover the whole moon, but it turns out there's local magnetic spots on the moon, and they actually will channel the radiation from the sun around those spots. They're like little magnetic bubbles. Now, the center of the bubble, not safe enough to have an astronaut stand in the middle of it while it's getting zapped by a solar flare. No, but there is evidence that magnetic bubbles from local probably mineral-rich regions on the moon with magnetic materials will actually deflect some of the stuff coming from the sun and basically create a little shell in that spot. We could see the evidence of basically concentrated sun particles missing certain places on the moon. I think that's what it is. Now, so it'd be nice to get some really, well, I don't know what's worse, a really high magnetic field to protect you from radiation, but then you suffer from being in a highly magnetic field. So, like your cell phone.
We've traveled through highly magnetic fields. We've traveled through the Van Allen belts. We live within a magnetic field.
Right.
The Earth's magnetosphere.
Mm-hmm. But if you're like in a smaller one, it'll have to be more concentrated. You probably got a good point there, Marty. I will agree with that. Now, I did find something on magnetic bubbles on the moon, evidence of sunburn.
and it's got a nice little video there. So let me see if what else I can find on that subject. Okay, I'm just thinking. Don't worry about me, I'm thinking out loud.
That's dangerous.
Very dangerous. And there's another one. And this actually shows a schematic view. Yeah, you're getting overloaded, are you? Okay, Marty's got his link in there, and I've got my other link in there. So there's 3 links on the subject, so we're not doing too bad tonight. Hello?
Sorry.
Hello?
If you've got some red and blue 3D glasses, there's a picture of Ultima Thule, the best resolution yet, in 3D.
Nice.
Check that out. Yeah. Got any 3D glasses laying around still? Now the red and blue ones, not the polarized ones.
I think somewhere I've got a pair somewhere, but
I got some.
Actually, you can make a pair very simply.
Oh yeah, just get some colored gels.
Yeah.
I would recommend different densities of red and blue because sometimes the colors on a computer monitor are not deep enough to give you a good 3D view. So some like thinner reds and blues. Try making a pair of those and some more dense reds and blues. I found that some different ones work a little bit better. I must have bumped my. When did I bump my mute?
I don't know, Marty, because I was getting kind of worried that I was the only person.
By the way, for those of you who keep track of our clock, we're going to go about 5 minutes over.
Yeah. Isn't that nice? We haven't been 5 minutes over for ages.
I know. Radio director's got to fix some stuff, so we're going a little bit over.
Now, as I say, if you can come in, if you do join us for the shows, do come into the chat rooms because all the links in there, all the fascinating conversation. This has been quite a busy chat room, really. Or
totally off-topic subjects will be in the chat room.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. This is the thing about the chat room. It gives you a really extra dimension to the show. It's not quite relative dimensions in space, but it's an extra dimension to the show.
I use it to tell when we're getting boring to the audience. They go and talk about other stuff in the chat room.
Yeah. But then again, you see, with the chat room, the great thing is people will put comments in, they'll put links in of their own.
Yes.
About what we're talking about.
That's what I say when it gets off topic. That means we're talking about something boring.
Well, as Glenn says, it's fun to mess with y'all. Yeah.
That's right.
That's the fun part. You can have a bit of fun with us, and you can ask us questions. Mm-hmm. You can make comments, and we do look at the chat room. We are following it whilst we're talking to you
as best we can. Well, I'll look at it when you're talking, and you look at it when I'm talking.
Actually, I'm looking at it when I'm talking too.
I can't do that. Well, I can look at it, but I just can't see anything.
That's why I was able to pick up on Black Project talking about the Nerva reactors and Project Orion, because. Right, okay. I have a special message from our radio director. It says that we are hung up.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, and so explaining the station will be reset at the end of our show. So we will do a sign-off and hang up on Skype.
Gotcha. We will hang up on our radio director instead of the other way around this time.
Yeah, for a change.
Is that what it means? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think it means.
All right, so I'll watch the countdown clock, and I'll make sure. So if we just, stop, that means we slipped a little bit and hung up too quick.
Well, the thing is, Glenn made a comment. He likes having his name mentioned. What it is, if you make a comment in the chat room, we mention your name, and because you're making the comment. And yeah, that is the greatest thing about the live shows. We have this ability. We can see what you're saying. Whilst you're listening to us, we've got the links going through. So yeah, keep the comments coming, because that way we know what you're thinking about. And yeah, occasionally Marty and I will wander off topic. We might start discussing warp drive engines and a few other things like that, or make bad jokes to each other. But we want your interaction.
That's right. And sometimes I'll just say, Glenn, Nick, it's getting really close to that time for us to head out of here.
Okay.
Call us up.
Captain Savage, this is the away team. Starstorm, Glenn, Glenn, you're part of the crew tonight. Marty and myself are ready for beam up.
Gotta go, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Yes. Bye.
Good night, all.
We hope that you've enjoyed this program from AFM Radio, the broadcast service of astronomy.fm. This program has been released under Creative Commons license. Please contact us for details. You may find more of our AFM original programs on our website. It's really easy to find us. We are astronomy.fm. You may also find us in the iTunes radio listings near the top of the News Talk section, and also as an iTunes podcast selection. We'd love to hear your comments. Please email us at radio@astronomy.fm. Thanks so much for being part of the voice of astronomy around the world and across the known universe. This is astronomy.fm radio.
Hi, this is Tavi Greiner, Astronomy.fm's Vice President of Communications. If you enjoy our programming, please let us know with a donation to astronomy.fm/donate. We really do rely on your support, and it's true, every little bit counts.
AFM. There I was, doing my thing. And all of a sudden, wham! Astronomy right between the eyes.